We will be talking about using the concepts of relative strength and relative rotation graph, which is also known as RRG, and we will understand how do we use it in our real life when it comes to staying invested in the right asset class. I'm Milan Vaishnav. I'll be the host for you today, as I just said. Just as a brief introduction of mine, I'm founder of ChartWizard, FZE, and Gemstone Equity Research and Advisory Services. We provide through both of these firms, we provide independent technical research on the Indian capital markets, US stocks, European stocks, and all the international commodities and cryptocurrencies. Apart from being a featured speaker on stockcharts.com, I also contribute regularly to the Economic Times here in India, which is the largest financial daily and second largest financial daily, next only to the WSJ. And apart from this, I have also contributed regularly in different financial media. In this session, we will begin with the concept of understanding the relative strength. We will also go through the importance that we have in our day-to-day analysis concepts and try and understand the importance of relative strength analysis that forms the core of any analysis that a classical technical analyst will usually do. We will then move on to introduction to relative rotation graphs. I'll also walk you through the construction and interpretation of the relative rotation graphs. I'll also highlight the method in which RRGs are used for a top-down analysis. Using RRG, we will examine the global asset allocation landscape. We will see how RRGs can be used in selecting the best asset classes and in knowing which asset classes we should be staying invested in, and importantly also looking at those asset classes which we should not be staying invested in. And we will take a look at gold, oil, and US equities from the relative standpoint, and we will look at technical levels on either direction in a few of the US stocks and sectors, and gold and oil. So before I begin saying anything on relative strength, I would like to highlight the difference between the concept of relative strength and relative strength index, that is RS and RSI. Why I am saying this at the beginning of the session is that over 90% of the people tend to confuse themselves between RS, that is relative strength, what we are going to speak about today, and RSI, which is relative strength index. So relative strength basically measures two compared instruments. It measures two stocks or a stock against an index, an index against an index, etc. But relative strength index, it doesn't measure two different things, but it measures the internal strength of the move against its own self, which is usually a 14-period default. So that is not something we are going to talk about. We are going to talk about RS, that is relative strength. So what is relative strength? Relative strength, basically, it's nothing but a method of measuring an outperformance or underperformance of one security against the other. For example, if we are talking about Apple and Amazon, so we can use the concept of relative strength to know whether Apple is outperforming or underperforming against the compared security or compared index. And it's also known as price relative indicator because it measures the relative behavior of the price of one instrument against the other. It compares the performance of one security with the other. So through use of the concept of relative strength, we can know if security A is performing better than security B or it's the other way around. It's also known as relative strength indicator or relative strength comparative. So a common question is that when we are here to discuss about relative rotation graph, RRG, why are we discussing relative strength? Why have I begun with relative strength? The reason is simple. we are talking about relative strength in the beginning because going ahead, it will lay a ground for understanding the concept of the relative rotation graph. So unless we know the concept of relative strength properly and in depth, we will not be able to grasp the concept of relative rotation graph. So that's the reason I'll be spending few minutes on relative strength, because once we understand it fully, we'll be able to better consume or better understand how the relative rotation graph would work. So going to a basic formula, relative strength is nothing but a price of base security divided by the comparative security. So for example, if we are comparing Twitter and Amazon, so if we want to take out the relative strength of Twitter against, say, Amazon, then we will divide the price of Twitter with the price of Amazon, and that will give a relative strength value, and we'll plot that. This can be done across asset classes. We can compare one stock against the index, one commodity against the commodity. We can compare oil and gold. We can compare gold and oil. We can compare a stock against index. We can compare one index with the other index. But the basic method would remain the same, that we will divide the base security by the comparative security. So how do we interpret the relative strength? That is exactly what I mentioned a while ago, that the primary use of the concept of relative strength is to select between the stocks by gauging the strength of the move of one stock against the other. Obviously, that we would like to stay invested in that stock or that commodity which is performing better than the other one. So we'll be able to find out that out of the two things that we are comparing, which one is performing better. And simply put, the stock whose relative strength line is rising against the stock it is compared with, that should be bought. So if we take out the relative strength line of, again, say Twitter against Amazon, and if that line is rising, then it's obvious that Twitter is outperforming the Amazon stock. Let me walk you through some of the examples of relative strength charts. These are the two individual stock charts of stock A and stock B. If you see the primary trend in both the stocks is rising. This is moving zigzag. It's oscillating between the range. This has come off its peak, but it's still trying to find support. And in overall, both of the stocks are in uptrend. So if I ask you to select, if we have to make a choice between stock A and stock B, which would be the stock that we will buy? So we'll go back to the formula. We will divide the price of stock A with stock B and see whether that line is rising or falling. This is what we get. This plot, this line is nothing but the prices of stock A divided by prices of stock B. Simple interpretation goes that this line is rising overall, broadly speaking. This further means that stock A has got a stronger relative strength over stock B, and so stock A should be preferred. If we have to make a choice between stock A and stock B, it is stock A that should be bought because the relative strength line is rising. Similar example. Here, both of the stocks, unlike the previous one which was oscillating in a range, here both of the stocks are in clear uptrend. But again, if we have a choice to make, what would be that choice? Stock 1 or stock 2? Again, we will use the same concept. We will divide the price of stock 1 with stock 2. And this is what we get. This is the relative strength line of the price price of stock 1 is divided by price of stock 2. And this line is rising. Therefore, again, same interpretation, that the stock 1 has got greater relative strength over stock 2. And if at all we have to make a choice whether to buy stock 1 or stock 2, it is stock 1 that should be preferred. So this is how a concept of relative strength works. It will help you decide between two compared securities, between two compared indexes, between two compared instruments, I'll put it that way. and will help to decide which one to buy in case if we have to make a choice. Interpretation is simple. If the relative strength of any stock is rising against the compared security, that should be bought. And if that relative strength line is declining, that stock or instrument should better be avoided. Again, I'll just like to reiterate that I discussed relative strength as a concept much before the concept of relative rotation graphs, is because the core formation of RRGs is based on primarily based on relative strength plus something more. So understanding or refreshing the concept of relative strength was important before we move on to RRG, that is the relative rotation graph. So let me introduce you all to relative rotation graphs. Relative rotation graphs are basically a visualization tool that is created to compare relative strength. The key difference between that is that when relative strength charts were used, we were just comparing two instruments, whereas RRG will compare multiple instruments on the same chart with the benchmark. So basically, RRG were created by Julius de Campnier in 2004-5. They are also referred to as RRGs, as I just said, and they are a unique visualization tool for relative strength analysis. We can use RRGs to analyze the relative strength trends of several securities, all on single chart with one benchmark and also within themselves. This sounds a little complicated, but I'll actually explain you as we move ahead in the session. Just for everyone's information, RRGs and relative rotation graph are registered trademark of RRG research. Now let me again walk you through what led to formation or what led to the development and creation of RRG. We all talk the same thing every time, and whenever there is a noticeable fall or a noticeable move in the market that occurs, we all tend to assign a different reason to that, and we say this time it's different. Well, is it really different? Let's move on and find out. Just spend a few seconds reading this paragraph. I am sure you all will be able to relate to this, that today's youth loves luxury, they are bad-mannered, despise all authority, show no respect, and talk when they should be working. Youngsters do not rise from their seats when elderly people enter or go against their parents, chat in company, gobble down their food, and tyrannize their teachers. So, I mean, we aren't finding this anything new. We can, it's something that we all can relate to. I think most of us will also answer in affirmative, that if I ask you that, do you all agree to all these things? And the answer would be yes. And you will say that, yeah, it's so relevant and so recent. But do you know who I am quoting? I am quoting Socrates. He said this way back in 400 BC. So what I'm trying to pinpoint is that whenever we say it's time is different, it is not different. The underlying reasons or underlying factors that are causing the moves in the market tend to be similar in nature if they are deeply analyzed. Or we can simply put that history repeats itself in one way or the other. It rotates. The event rotates. They happen sometime. They tend to cease for some time. Again, they come into picture. They happen. They come and they go, and they come and they go again. So they tend to rotate. And history tends to repeat itself. It does make sense to look at history, and perhaps we might all learn something. There is the reason that I drew this analogy. The foremost premise of this is that whenever we say that this time is different, we always try to attribute a reason which is new and unique to the most recent happening in the market. That may not be the case. That's what I'm trying to drive home a point. So now let us move to the construction of relative rotation graph. This basically, the need for relative rotation graph came from a basic situation that we all face in day-to-day lives. Let's discuss the life of a professional fund manager, money manager, or a portfolio manager, and a private investor. Now, just imagine if the market situation is not comfortable, or you don't find the current market situation fine or safe or right for investing, or you may not be finding good options to buy or stay invested in the market. If you are a private investor, you have a choice to sit 100% on cash. You have a choice to remain out of the market for some time. You have a choice not to invest. But when it comes to professional money managers, when it comes to institutions, when it comes to hedge funds, mutual funds, the answer to invest or not to invest, it doesn't, they don't have that luxury. They have to stay invested. Now, simply put, you have some money at your disposal. You have to decide whether, do I want to invest or do I not want to invest? If you say no, okay, I am fine with cash, then the rest of the presentation will stop here. It will not have any value. But if your choice is to invest, let's see how it makes, how relative rotation graph makes life easy for an investor or a fund manager. As I just said, imagine the life of a professional fund manager. He doesn't have the luxury to sit on cash. He doesn't have a luxury not to stay invested at all. You will always find institutional investors, um, fund managers, hedge fund managers, mutual funds. They may be sitting on less or more amount of cash, but they never sit on 100% cash, because they have to stay invested in smaller or bigger proportion in the markets. And when they really don't have the choice of not to stay invested, they need to see a bigger picture. It's like a need to see a forest from trees. I mean, if you just climb on top of the tree, you may see few trees around you, but you cannot see the entire forest. So what they need is to see the entire picture in one big picture, because if they have to stay invested, they will need certain tool. And why do they need certain tool? I'll tell you. Being a private investor, most of the private investors will focus on absolute returns. If your portfolio is worth $100,000, and at the end of year, if your portfolio is worth say $105,000, then your absolute returns are $5,000. That is 5%. But when you are a professional fund manager or institutional fund manager, you also need to see the relative returns. You cannot always see the absolute returns, because what happens, say for example, again that same portfolio of $100,000 earns 5%, but the benchmark, all funds will have a benchmark, right? For example, let's take a simple example. There is an equity oriented fund and the benchmark is S&P 500. Now, if that fund has made 5% returns, but S&P has returned 7%, despite the gains of 5%, absolute 5% on the fund has relatively underperformed the benchmark. Same thing goes the other way around. Let's say equity oriented fund of 100,000 has made 5,000 profit, and it has got, say, absolute returns of 5%, but the benchmark S&P 500 has just returned, say, 2%. So what happens? Along with 5% absolute returns, the fund has also relatively outperformed the benchmark by 3%. So the introduction to relative rotation graph, understanding this situation is very important, that being a fund manager, and while focusing on the relative returns as well, you need to compare the relative strength of as much components as much possible to all the benchmark, and the relative strength of all the components within their own self. And therefore you need a structured approach wherein you get all the information available in an uncomplicated, in a manner which is not complicated, uncomplicated manner, in an easy to digest view should be made available. So let's see how we can deploy this tool. Again, we are deciding that being a fund manager, we don't have a choice of not investing, and we have to invest. So let's see what further situation that a fund manager will come across. Now, when a fund manager has to invest, and if he just have to choose between two asset class, bonds and equities, then it would be easy. He will just use the old concept of relative strength, the basic concept. I will not say the old concept, but a basic concept where we divided the price of say bonds with equities, and if that line is rising, then bonds are outperforming the equities, so he will buy bonds. And the other way around, if the relative strength line of bonds against equity is falling, then equity is outperforming and he will buy equities. So making a choice for him would be easy. But what if he has got multiple choice to make? For example, he has money to be deployed in both bonds and equities. Within that instruments, he might be looking at the treasuries of different countries, maybe from US, from Europe or Asia, and it works similarly when it comes to equities. That whether he might have to allocate his funds to between different countries. Then what he will end up with? He will end up with charts, many different charts. He will have to compare hundreds of securities, each one against the other, and ultimately not making sense out of anything, not getting a simple, clear, identifiable picture from anything. So he will end up getting charts, many different charts, hundreds of charts, ranging from very simple to very complex. And what would be the main problem is that in the basic relative strength method, he will be just be able to compare one thing against the other. So he will be able to compare only two things, one thing against the other. But what if he has to do compare hundreds of things? For example, if he's dealing with a stock universe of 1500 stocks, so he cannot, it's not humanly possible to have different permutations and combinations of two different things within those 1500 components and compare all of them against each other and the benchmark. So viewing things from a broader market would become more difficult. And our classical tool of relative strength will help you make only a choice between two securities, but not a multiple choices among multiple securities. He will not get a clear picture. He will not be able to compare all 1500 security against the rest of all within themselves, one against the other, and all collectively against a benchmark. He will not be able to do that. So that would make things humanly impossible to deal with. So what he would need is one picture in big picture, as I just said. And what would that picture be? A single chart wherein he is able to compare the relative strength of all the securities within themselves and also against their benchmark. Let's see how it will work out with relative rotation graphs. Now this brings us to RRG basically. Now I'll show you how a RRG or a relative rotation graph would look like. But before that, let me say a few things about its constructions. Basically, it is made up of two things. One is JDK-RS ratio, and the other one is JDK-RS momentum. It is basically meant, it is basically constructed using two things. One is ratio and the momentum. Ratio is something which is plotted on the horizontal axis of the chart. I'll show you the chart because that will help you understand in a better way. And the momentum is plotted on the vertical axis. Once we look the charts, we will understand. We will be able to understand it in a better way. So JDK ratio is basically a proprietary indicator, and it measures the relative strength of all the elements in the universe in such a way that numerical results are comparable. Not only the values of ratio telling whether an element of universe is doing better than the benchmark, but also it will tell if doing better or worse than the other element. So now let me simplify this. Let's say we are dealing with a stock universe of say 5 stocks or 10 stocks. So what will this ratio do? It will measure the relative strength of all the 10 stocks at once, and it will give you idea of it will give you an input from two angles. One, it will show you the relative strength of each component against the other. All the 10 charts, it will show you the relative strength of those 10 components, 10 stocks against not only against each other but also against a benchmark. So if the benchmark of this 10 stocks is say S&P 500, then it will show you two things. One, the relative strength of all those 10 stocks compared with each other from that bunch of 10 stocks, and also collectively against their benchmark, which is S&P 500. The second thing which I just mentioned is the momentum. Now, once this ratio is calculated, the momentum calculates the direction and the rate of change of that ratio. So while the ratio or the relative strength is changing, momentum will say whether it is changing with good or strong momentum or not, or if it is getting stronger or weaker, and whether it is turning up or down. So it measures the direction of the ratio line and also the rate of change of the this ratio line. So now let me move to show you how a relative strength, relative rotation graph would basically look like. It looks like a square chart with 4 quadrants. The signs that appear are little confusing, which I'll explain in a while. But the one on the top right, if you can see the pointer, is the leading quadrant. The one below that, below right, is the weakening quadrant. On the bottom left, we have lagging quadrant, and on the top left, we have improving quadrant. So what does this plus, minus, minus, plus signs mean? This means that when the stock or any instrument, any asset class for that matter. So now let me point out this, everything can be plotted here: stocks, indexes, cryptos, any asset class for that matter can be plotted here. And if they are in the leading quadrant, it would mean that both the momentum and the ratio are moving higher. Here it will mean that the ratio is still moving higher, but the momentum is declining. When both momentum and ratio is declining, it will take the stock to the lagging quadrant. And once the momentum starts, the relative strength starts to improve. The momentum would improve first, and it will bring the stock to the improving quadrant. So the thing is that anything that is located in the top 2 quadrants will outperform on relative terms with the benchmark. That's the whole point is. Whole point is that this will help you decide in which asset class or stocks that you should stay invested in order to get better relative and absolute returns. Or rather, let me put it in a more focused way. This will help you decide to stay invested in those instruments or stocks which will not help you just to earn absolute returns, but it will also keep you it will also help you with getting relative returns, strong relative returns. And in the same breath, it will also help you to, get out of those instruments or stocks which will start underperforming the benchmark on relative terms, because everything in the end is relative. Apart from absolute return, returns that we focus on, focusing on relative returns is also a must. Again, I'll give you an example with this, that let's say markets are not good, markets are declining, they are not performing. Let's say the equity oriented fund returned a negative returns of 5%. At 100,000 fund at the beginning of the year is now worth 95,000. So it has gotten a negative 5% return. But just imagine if the benchmark is S&P 500 and S&P 500 has declined 9%, for example, then the fund manager has got all the reasons to be happy about, because he has relatively outperformed the benchmark by a whole lot of 4%. So focusing on relative returns is equally, or rather more important, and therefore the whole this exercise will help us going ahead. So this picture now tells us a story in a more understandable way. As I just said, this is the leading quadrant, and sectors and stocks in the top right quadrant, they have positive relative strength and both the positive relative momentum. This means that RS is getting stronger, relative strength is getting stronger. Ultimately, when before relative strength becomes negative, momentum starts to level off and it goes into the weakening quadrant. When both are declining, the momentum as well as the ratio or the relative strength, this brings the stock into the lagging quadrant. The components, if they are rotating in this direction, will underperform the relative benchmark. So long as they are moving from weakening to lagging, that's the time that one should take money off the table from those instruments, because on individual basis they might continue to outperform, they might continue to perform, but they will not perform when it comes to um, when it comes to outperforming the benchmark. So it will not perform in line with the benchmark, but ultimately that bad phase will also end, and RS will come to an end. So this will start with an improvement in the momentum. Whenever the momentum starts improving, it will bring the stock or the instrument or the asset in the improving quadrant, and it will any entry in the leading quadrant or in the improving quadrant would mean that a phase of relative underperformance has ended and a phase of relative outperformance has begun. Now we will actually go on to see how it looks when we apply it in real life. But before that, let us take a structural setup view. I will just deviate from here. While we digest this concept and come to it a bit later, let us first also have a structural look on setup of gold from a short, medium, and long-term perspective. Why are we doing this? Because again, when we move back to the real-life application of RRG, we'll be also looking at gold compared against the gold or rather commodities compared against the other asset classes on the relative rotation graph. So let me focus on gold for a while, and then we'll move back to the real life application of RRG. So how are you all going to trade gold in the coming days? This is the monthly chart, and it shows an excellent bullish cup and handle formation, as we call it in the technical parlance. It shows that there is a triple top resistance in the 1950-1990 zone, and if that gold moves above that, it has capacity to initiate a fresh move, a fresh leg of up move in the long term. And until that, but until that happens, we may see the gold we may see gold consolidating in a broad range. We also see that the monthly MACD has just about to report a positive crossover. It is slightly below the signal line, but the narrowing slope of the histogram shows that a positive crossover is on the cards. So from the monthly point of view, gold looks extremely bullish, but above 2000 levels. Until then, 1850 to 1950 may be the trading range for the gold. But if you are in for a long-term perspective, the outlook is much buoyant. Now let's look at the weekly charts. It says the same story. The gold is taking support on the 10-week moving average. It's resisting the same line which I just mentioned, that is 1950 to 1990 levels. And any move about that may take the gold higher. And if there is any slip below 1930 levels, we may see it consolidating somewhat in a lower range. Same goes for the daily look, short-term look. Again, we are short-term in short-term momentum is on because 10-day moving average has again crossed above 40 DMA, and we may see gold managing to stay above 1900. So any move above any sustenance of gold above 1930 levels will have an upward bias. Any move below 1930 will make it weaker. That is for the short-term traders, short-term trading perspective. It may oscillate in the range. But if you are a medium-term to long-term investor or a trader or whatever it is, then you are in for a good structural move in the gold. At this point in time, I would also like to point out that I don't have the chart here right now. I think I should have put that chart. The, the dollar index. The dollar index is as a classical triple top level, a major resistance level of around 100 to 100.2. So it is expected to consolidate a bit here, and while it consolidates, it may give some good reasons or it can make life little easy for gold. But in case if we are seeing a major spurt in the dollar index, given the frequent rate hikes that are expected, well then gold will continue to edge higher, but the journey would be little difficult for the gold because rise in dollar index doesn't help gold, or it doesn't make life easy when it has to move higher. But apart from that, from a short-term perspective, gold is in a trading range, and any move about 2000 will take it higher. On a long-term perspective, the reading is same, but it's in a more structural uptrend or on the verge of a breakout. with the caveat that too much of strength in dollar index may derail a move in gold for a bit. Now, again, let me go back to the very first instance of concept of basic relative strength, which I mentioned, where we compared two securities, one with the other. Here, there's a relative strength line of gold against equities, wherein we have taken S&P 500, which represents activity, which represents equity. We see that until 2011, there was a good amount. The RS line of gold against S&P 500 was rising. Therefore, gold was outperforming the equities. But since over a decade, beginning of 2011 to almost, except for this brief period, overall the relative underperformance of gold against equities is very evident. Gold has largely underperformed the equities all throughout the decade. But again, it showed some bullish divergence of RSI against the price. And as of now, as of today, the relative strength line of gold is rising against the equity. So if all things remaining constant, there are possibilities that gold may perform a little better than the equities as of now. We are again using the basic concept of relative strength line, study of relative strength of Brent oil against gold. Again, that was between a commodity and an equity. This is between two commodities. We are comparing Brent oil against gold. So again, evident from the RS line that gold or rather Brent crude has its phases of underperformance and outperformance against the precious metal. This was the phase when Brent crude was underperforming gold. This was when it was outperforming. Again, this downward channel shows that crude was underperforming. But the most recent structure of RS line shows that Brent crude is in the RS line of Brent crude is in uptrend. Therefore, Brent crude is evidently and strongly outperforming the precious metal as of now. So if we put it in the order of preference between gold, oil, or equity, we can fairly say that oil is performing better than both equity and gold is performing better than the equity. So these two charts, this will help us decide if we have to decide between gold or equity. And this chart will help us decide if we have to make a choice between crude oil or gold, if at all we are supposed to make here a choice. So now this takes us back to the application of relative rotation graph in real life. If you recollect, I had mentioned that while using the rudimentary concept of relative strength, we are just comparing two instruments, two securities. In one chart, we compared gold and equities. In the other chart, we compared Brent oil, crude oil, and gold. But we were not able to compare all asset classes on single chart. That's why we need RRG. Now, what does this chart show? This chart shows multiple asset classes plotted here. We have iShares Commodity Index Trust Fund. We have Bloomberg Commodity Index. We have US dollar as an asset class here. We have Vanguard Real Estate ETF. We have got S&P 500 ETF, which represents equity. We have high yield corporate bond. We have a US Treasury bond. We have invested grade corporate bond. All these different classes, asset classes are compared against. We have used Vanguard Balanced Index Fund as a benchmark. So what sense do we make out of this? These two things, that is DJP and GLC, these are the commodities basically. They are in the leading quadrant. Their momentum is declining, but by far they are grossly outperforming the rest of the asset classes by huge margins. Dollar is somewhat remaining strong, but it's consolidating. But if we see that this red one is investment grade corporate bond, bonds are underperforming. So if we just look at this one picture, we get answer to everything. Commodities, yes, they are outperforming. Equities, they are doing well. So they are just moving in and out, which making small moves. And in bond, they are underperforming. So this gave us a broad picture, a big picture in one picture. So if we have to make any asset allocation, we would prefer with the one those asset class whose relative strength is improving. That, for example, this one VNQ, that's the Vanguard Real Estate ETF. It's making strong moves in leading quarter and it's rising. So it is expected that real estate fund, this real estate ETF, real estate sector is likely to perform better than the bonds. It's likely to better perform, relatively perform better than the commodities. So all of them makes us asset allocation very easy if we use this relative rotation graph. Because see what happens that in this chart shows you two things. One, it shows the relative performance of all these components against each other. We know that bond is not performing, or rather real estate ETF is performing better than the bond, or rather commodities are performing far better than the rest of the asset classes. This is one thing we got. We got how these components are performing against each other, but we also got an idea as to how they are performing vis-a-vis their benchmark. In this case, it's a balanced index fund. So what we got is a big picture in one picture, as I always say. Same, if RRGs are basically used for getting or adopting a top-down approach, wherein we can use RRG to select different asset classes. Once we decide the asset class, say for example equities, we can use it to choose which global market to invest in. Once we decide on that, we can use the same RRGs to use to see that within that selected global market, which are the sectors we should be staying invested in. Once we shortlist that sectors, we can again use RRGs to plot the components of that sector and decide that which stocks out of those sectors we should be invested in. So for the entire top-down approach, this concept is applicable. So let's take a view on the YTD performance, year-to-date performance of the global indexes, which is very polarized. If we see that we have 5 components, S&P 500, Hang Seng, CAC 40 index, Nikkei and Shanghai Composite, all returning a negative 8% to 11% on year-to-date basis. It's only Straits Times that that's standing apart with the negative return, and the worst performing is the global DAX, which has returned a 16%. So even the performance of the global markets, global equity markets have stayed highly polarized in 2022. But again, this doesn't help us decide which market to stay invested in. So that's why we will again move to relative rotation graph. So what I've done is that I have made MSCI World Index as a benchmark and have plotted all the global indexes into it. So we see that Australia All Ordinary Index is in the leading quadrant. Nikkei is in the improving quadrant and moving towards the, you also have to look at the direction or the trajectory of the tail. These are tails basically. So if we draw a very fast conclusion, and if we are supposed to select a few markets to invest in, it would make sense to select Australia, Nikkei, Nifty, which is turning back, S&P index, which is turning back into the leading quadrant, to invest. And despite strong gains in Straits Times as of now, it's time that we should take some profits off the Singapore market, of the FTSE, and move money to the markets which are likely to perform relatively better going ahead. For example, Hang Seng has gotten back into the lagging quadrant, so that's something. If we are supposed to make a fresh choice now, we will stay away from Hang Seng. We will stay away from the DAX. The one in the green is DAX. We will stay away from a CAC 40 index, but we will allocate money to Nikkei. We will allocate money to Australia. We'll allocate some money to S&P 500, which is moving back inside the leading quadrant. So again, one single picture gave you an entire idea of relative performance, all the markets against each other and against their benchmark. So this makes, rather than comparing FTSE against Straits against Australia against Nifty, it doesn't make it humanly possible to check. But this picture gave us a clear idea that what the situation, it gave us a situational awareness of the global equities landscape. So it makes very easy for a fund manager to allocate money and decide that, okay, I'm staying away from Hang Seng, I'm allocating some money to Australia, to Japan, to US, to India, and I'm moving away from CAC, I'm moving away from DEX, and I'll stay away from Hang Seng. So it makes the decision process quite easy. Similar application is possible for sectors. For example, if at all, let's see, we have decided that it's the it's the US markets that we will stay invested in. So once we decide which markets to invest in, we'll try looking at the sector. So what I've done is that I have made S&P 500 as the benchmark, and I have plotted different sector ETFs in the US. Again, this says that XLP, which is the consumer staples, is relatively outperforming all the other sectors. XLV is doing good, which is the healthcare index. Then XLRE, which is real estate. XLU, that is utilities. They're doing good. So as a fund manager, I will have a direct input that I should be staying invested in XLP, that is consumer staples, utilities, real estate. Then XLV, which is healthcare, and I should be staying away from XLY, that is consumer discretionary, the XLK, which is technology. So I will know which sectors to stay away from, and I'll know which sector should I be staying invested in. Same thing applies with the Forex also. Here we have plotted different major currencies against the US dollar. It's very evident that while Japanese yen is grossly underperforming the dollar, Australian dollar is strongly outperforming the US dollar. Same thing. This is the Indian. This all data rotating back inside the lagging quadrant have started to underperform the US dollar, whereas only the single currency that is staying apart is the Australian dollar, which is showing exemplary relative strength against the dollar. Same thing. We can also use it to plot the cryptocurrencies. So we know Bitcoin. We know that Bitcoin exists, but what all other cryptos should be bought? So what we have done here is that I have made Bitcoin as a benchmark, and I have compared all the other cryptos, and I'm trying to see whether they are outperforming or underperforming against the Bitcoin, which is the benchmark. So we see that cryptos like Monero and XRP are in the leading quadrant, so they are going to outperform the Bitcoin. In the similar way, all these cryptos which are Cardano, and we have Dogecoin, we have Tron, which are building up good momentum against this thing, Bitcoin. But let's go to this one. This one is Tether. So that is underperforming. So if we have to make a choice between Tether or Bitcoin, we would go for Bitcoin, because this is weakening itself against the Bitcoin. But when it comes to selecting which one against the Bitcoin, and if you have to make, then well, we see that Binance Coin or Ethereum, they are strongly improving in the relative momentum against the Bitcoin. So we know that which cryptos, if not Bitcoin, then if you have to decide from the rest of the universe, which are the cryptos that are showing good momentum, which are likely to give us good returns in the future, we can shortlist them, and we can also shortlist all those asset classes or cryptos or stocks or sectors where we should not be staying invested in. So it answers both the questions, that which is the place that we should be staying invested in, and which is the place we should not be staying invested in. And all this in one single chart. This is a crypto RRG. So we can use RRG to scan the markets also, because see, I'll give you an example that how to effectively use RRG to find out the stock universe. We will here use the quadrant crossovers in the stocks. By quadrant crossover means anything either entering the leading quadrant or the entering quadrant will feature in the scan. Once we shortlist that stocks which are entering either the improving or leading quadrant, we have an option to filter them by using one standard deviation or two standard deviations. Why do we do this? Why do we do this? Is that this is the center point. If you all can see the cursor, further the stock is away from the center point, more alpha it will generate. So if someone is just entering the improving quadrant from here, and there is a stock which enters the improving quadrant from here, then this one is likely to generate more alpha against a benchmark. So once we shortlist this, we can look for favorable chart setup and structure and look for further price confirmations. I would like to reiterate that this method, scanning the stocks and or not only the stocks or any asset through the quadrant crossover methods, it works at all levels. It's of real use when it comes to a top-down approach. It can be applied for shortlisting anything, shortlisting the global markets that you should be invested in, or shortlisting the sectors that you should be invested in, shortlisting the stocks or any other instrument that you should stay invested in or not stay invested in. This method can be applied everywhere, across the markets, across asset classes, across all levels, and it makes a cornerstone of a top-down approach. So let us now show you that how does this scan actually looks like. I have ran a quadrant crossover scans on Nasdaq 100, and I found out this 4 stocks making a quadrant crossover. Now, if I apply a 1% standard deviation, I would look for the one which is farthest away from the center point. Therefore, in order to capture or rather generate maximum alpha. So if we apply a filter, you don't need to necessarily apply a filter, but here I have applied. Then ASML holding and Align Technology is something that I would like to focus on to generate maximum alpha against the benchmark. The benchmark is S&P 500 again, but the universe of stocks I have scanned is Nasdaq 100. Let's move on. I ran a similar quadrant crossover scans on S&P 500 shares. So I got so many more components. Again, I filtered it by 1 or 2 standard deviations so that I don't focus on the stocks which are very near to the center point, but I focus on the ones which are as far as possible from the center point. So after this filter is applied, we get Oracle, we get BR, we get CARR, we get Align Technologies, ALGN, we get Trow Price, that's TROW. And this makes life easy for a fund manager to focus on the symbols or on the stocks which are as far as possible away from the center point and have made a quadrant crossover. I reiterate, farther the stocks are from the center point, more alpha they are likely to generate. So Align Technology charts look like this. Once we shortlisted the stock, we can move on to the technical charts. We see that there is a strong bullish divergence of RSIs. The price making lower bottoms, but the RSI is not making lower bottoms. The moment it has crossed the momentum, JDK RS momentum that we just talked about goes above 100, which takes the stock into the improving quadrant. And the MACD crossover has not yet happened, but the histogram is narrowing very sharp, very fast. So all this makes a good accumulation case for Align Technology. Whenever there is a price confirmation to enter, this stock will generate far bigger alpha than its benchmark. Similar formations on, we can apply this on sector also. So I applied this on communication ETF, weekly basis. It's on pattern support. There is MACD crossover is about to happen. It has entered the improving quadrant. So whenever the stock, there is a quadrant crossover, it means that a period of consolidation or underperformance has ended and period of outperformance has begun. So we can also see some good relative returns in XLC, that is the communication sector ETF. Similar thing, again, we'll move back to the stock, that is Oracle Corp. Similar thing, moving inside the improving quadrant, it means that the period of underperformance might have ended. Period of outperformance is likely to begin now. Post some confirmation on the price chart, if we enter, this stock also is going to capture far greater alpha than the benchmark. To sum up, the entire concept of relative rotation graph is to stay invested in those countries, in those asset classes, in those sectors, in those stocks, in those instruments which are likely to give us far better relative returns and therefore alpha against their benchmark. So in this session, we revisited the concept of relative strength. We walked through the importance of relative strength analysis. We saw how two securities could be compared to each other. We then got introduced to relative rotation graph. We went through the construction and interpretation of the RRGs and how RRGs are basically used for better top-down analysis. We examined the global asset allocation landscape. We also understood how the RRGs can be applied to when it comes to selecting between different asset classes. And we also examined the overall broader technical setup of gold, oil, and US equities, and also their relative setup of the US stocks and sectors against their benchmark on a little bigger and larger landscape. So, friends, this brings me to an end of this session, and I'm sure I tried hard to keep it interesting, and I'm sure that getting introduced to the concept of relative rotation graphs and inculcating the habit of studying relative strength in your analysis will add a lot of value to your investing and trading journey. So I hope that you all found this useful. So I'll be ready with the questions if at all we have any. Yeah, we are in fact recording this session. So if you missed it or if you need to watch it again, yes, the links would be made available in a day's time. Yeah, actually, for Indian market, RRGs are available only with Optima and StockCharts.com for the retail segment. They are available on this thing, Reuters and Bloomberg, but for retail users, you can find them on Optima or StockCharts. There is no specific software for RRG. There's a question that how to use RRG software and what are the subscription fees. RRG is just an indicator. The way all charting software will have an option to add MACD, will have option to add RSI. In a similar way, you will have a feature to study relative rotation graph on Optima and StockCharts, so far as retail landscape is concerned. So there is not a specific software dedicated to this, but we will find it on StockCharts and Optima.com. Thank you. In the end, I would also like to mention that you will also receive an email from us, which will have a link to try out a demo account. Or if you want, you can proceed with opening a live account with equity. And I'm sure you will have a very high value-added experience in your trading and investment journey through them. So if you have any further questions, you can reach out to me on Twitter at Milan_Vaishnav, or you can write to me on LinkedIn or on the email, as you see on the screen, milan.v@chartwizard.ae. And I'll reach out to you in as much detail as to the extent possible by me. So feel free to reach out in future anytime. Thank you. So this brings to an end. So I thank you once again, friends, for joining me, for taking your time out and joining me here. And I would look forward to connecting with you all again very shortly. Thank you so much. Thank you.